You see, the fall of man, taking the sort of Hebrew approach to understanding, is that we do things in our own strength. We leave the body, for instance, if I might think of Yogoda. We leave the body when we don't do Yogoda exercise to replenish itself. We're breathing, of course, but we're not conscious of it. The air goes into the lungs, the oxygen goes into the bloodstream, the cells are fed with the materials that it needs, the carbon from the food and so on, and the oxygen from the air we breathe, and generates enough energy, surplus, to run the body motor. It is the body motor. Sends the energy to uses the energy to affect its shape, if you like. It gets the muscle to work, and the work is done. And that's because we're using the body. We're using the resources around us in the creation. The matter, our body, and the energies from the foods and that we take in, or at least the energy that's generated by the food and so on. But that was not God's way. He didn't start with the creation and then use it. He actually made the creation by simply an act of thought. Now that's what we're practicing in Yogoda. We might think of it as exercise, encouraging the body to do and function the way it should. Not at all. We are doing the functioning by a direct command of the will, the mind. Hence, focus, concentrate on what you're doing. It's, even if you've got a damaged body part, it's still a good idea to mentally go through the exercise as if you were doing it, but not actually do it, because the body's screaming out, doesn't like the pain of you doing it. But you see, we are exercising our will, not to force the body to do what it doesn't want to do, but to create, ultimately, what we wish to create. So we visualize the body part functioning the way it should. We speak the word into creation. And in that sense, you see, no matter how ill Kriyananda was, he still, with his assistant's help, holding him upright, did the energization exercises in as far as, of course, he could. Amazing, eh? Now, I would say, and I would hope, he wasn't forcing the body against its pain. That he was doing what he could do, and what he couldn't do, he was still doing mentally. What I'm saying quite simply is that Yogoda exercises, energization exercises, are another form of Kriya. You're entering into the reality of your mind supplying the thoughts from God's mind, his thoughts, straight into the body. You, in the energization exercises are giving the energy straight from God, as opposed to leaving the body to fend for itself with the materials that it has before it, namely the oxygen and the carbon and all the other elements that it could use in some chemical activity that results in a surplus of energy which can be used to motorize the body. And give the movements and so on that you want, when you want it. In other words, we receive the breath of life when we first come into the world. We already have life in us. And the body starts to fend for itself. It takes a breath, brings in new oxygen, uses that, as opposed to just finding it's there, which it did in the womb from mum. It was fed direct by this noble being, mum, and now it has to come externally. Food has to be put there in front of it and eat the food. You have to teach, well, ideally you don't have to teach. Baby automatically sucks on mum's breast and receives the food, but if they don't, my goodness, you panic, and midwife does all she can to encourage baby to have a go itself. You've got to do it, sweetheart. And of course, if not, well, you might do it by some artificial means, bottled milk and so forth. Yeah. Of course, you may know that you can simply receive energy direct, straight from the sun. You don't want too much, of course. But 20 minutes a day to 40 minutes, depending on the climate you're in and the time of day that you actually sunbathe. And you receive energy direct. You'll notice that, in fact, you tend to eat much more in winter than in summer, especially if you are, a person who's out in the sun, even if it's just basically coming on your arms and face and so on. But you can sunbathe. And you'll notice Paramahansa mentions that I forgot which lady it was now he visited. Got a feeling it was in Germany. And she had a sunlight window in the roof of the place she lived in. He doesn't say anything else about it. He doesn't say, how much she sunbathes or anything like that. But you get the clear impression that he's making a point, almost because he doesn't give an explanation. We tend to value sunlight from the point of view of the immune system being strengthened and the body converting cholesterol in the skin. I think 4/5 of which cholesterol that the body actually makes, and it tends to be a different cholesterol, I think, compared to that which is taken in the diet. And the sunlight converts to vitamin D, which in turn helps the immune system, which is to say you're doing something in sunlight, you're receiving something that strengthens the body, gives it the wherewithal, the force, the ability to live on less direct food. Direct food from other parts of the environment, namely fruit and veg and breathing. When you lay in the sun, you notice you scarcely breathe. Well, partly because you're laying anyway. You're not demanding any energy to make the body function. Because it's warm, you're not having to generate heat. Keep the body at a certain temperature. It's being done for you. And you receive the energy from the sun into the body. And, a reasonable average type summer gives you opportunity for a good immune system through the winter. I understand that there is also another way of receiving energy, direct, or if you like, not via the food we eat and the air we breathe. And that is, if you like, the radiant company of a really lovely person. You'll notice when you fall in love, eating becomes far less important to you. Just being with your beloved is life. You're radiating into each other. And I might point out, you can do that without actually being within the close vicinity of such. Simply by thinking of them. Which brings me to perhaps the ultimate source. In a circuitous route, we come back to what's achieved by the Yogoda and Kriya, which is the awareness of the presence of God. And it is specifically the awareness, again, just like when you're in love, of the presence of God. Through the mind, you're receiving the thoughts of God, generating the energy that brings health and vitality, energy to the body. Wonderful reality. You're feeding on, quite literally, the power of God. Thank you, Dad. The fundamental experience of man is separation from oneness with God. To in fact inhabit a separation here in the universe of time and space and matter, change and uncertainty, where he becomes dependent upon such narrow environment and source of energy well-being. Narrow thoughts. The narrow thoughts are the habitation of this universe as we see it. In other words, we enchain and encase ourselves in a body, so to speak, of extremely narrow limitations, where energy and vitality only come through breathing and eating. Instead of the direct fullness of access to the glory of God's being, consciousness, in other words, of Him. We hide ourselves in a narrow corner of His mind, so to speak, and experience such limitation narrowly and specifically. If you like, we work through a certain karma, a certain chain of experiences, of thoughts, to free us from anything that would limit us, keep us from the harmony of God when we return to our free access. And the experience, should I say plural, that we have here, mold our uniqueness such that it's a harmony with all heaven, which includes, of course, God. And that's what this childhood here is about. Thank you, Dad. Well, of course, we all know when we get tired, we tend to sleep. Give yourself, a cat nap, or even 4 or 5, 6 hours of sleep. You're repowered, regenerated, rejuvenated. Of course, you've used very little power in that time. So you could say that even the body ticking over at a low rate, if it has the wherewithal in terms of food and nourishment, and some oxygen available in the room that you're breathing, albeit getting staler and staler if you've got the windows all shut, you recharge the body. And there it looks as though you're letting it recharge by recharging itself, given availability of nourishment and oxygen. But it may be that the act of sleeping gives the opportunity for your spirit to blend, I was going to say, rather more fully with God. Hence, you sometimes have reminiscences that you've been dreaming, and even some of the details of the dream. And you think, well, quite amazing, where did I manage to generate this dream from? In other words, you've been thinking amazing things that you don't normally think during the day. Perhaps you were swimming and you can't swim normally. I've had that. I don't know how to swim. or at least I can't swim, if you know what I mean. But I have been swimming in my dreams, and it's occurred to me, oh, wonderful, I can swim after all. And it's all happening in my thoughts, in my dreams. Do you see, I'm experiencing a wider access to God's mind than I normally have in the waking state. You may say, oh, but it's a dream, it's a fantasy. Yes, it is indeed. It's a whole package of thoughts that are different to what I normally have access to. And I'm not too aware in the dream that how I'm accessing such a variety of experiences. And I wake up and say, oh, it was just a dream, and you dismiss it and plow on through your day. So what I'm saying is that sleep may be necessary or great help and advantage to us in that it gives us different thought experiences. That affect our memory and recall when we wake to some extent, or more often I think affects our mood, our background potential for how we feel and what we're accessing from God during the day. So you can wake up, you've had a particularly lovely dream, and your day starts well in a sense. Or you wake up and you've had a disturbing dream, and you are disturbed. You know, you're not quite in harmony for the day ahead, and you've got to get yourself back on track in some way. If you like, we could say in the sleeping state, you have a different consciousness, one that you may not have linked to your wake time memory, but you may have traces of it. You know, you may have traces of what the experience was. You remember a bit of the dream. Seems very unrelated in some ways to normal living, so I tend to dismiss it as a dream. But the whole act of sleeping may be to somehow shut down the limitations of your normal, if you like, astral body, so that you experience some relief in a wider or different contact consciousness. Experience a part of God's mind that you don't normally have in waking state. Well. Thank you, Dad. Now, I'm not claiming that I've got it all right here in this recording any more than any other. I'm a child of God like yourself. But I am saying that there seems to be great value in opening the mind to the possibility of such. And you will do so according to your inclination, your freedom. May it be a blessing to you. Thank you, Dad.